What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. Today, I want to talk to you guys about something pretty big that happened 2 weeks ago. My wife and I got to take a very much needed vacation to Cancun. We went to go celebrate our 5-year anniversary, and it was our first solo trip without her being pregnant or us having a newborn with us. So that's a pretty big deal. And I mainly want to talk about it because, as you know, or for the ones that don't, I have transverse myelitis. What's transverse myelitis? Well, you can go check out one of the other videos so you can fill yourself in regards to transverse myelitis. But the sped up process is I live with a disability, a disease that left me paralyzed, and I have a bunch of deficiencies that make it very hard to do day-to-day things. All right, and transverse myelitis definitely showed up in our vacation. We expected it, to be honest, but we did have some very high hopes. But before I get to that, I want to talk about just the overall experience of going to Cancun. I am from Mexico, but I actually have never been to Cancun before. My wife is not from Mexico. She is Ukrainian, yet her and her family have been to Cancun multiple times. Kind of ironic, huh? But anywho, this was our first time together, and I was excited, and we were so eager to get to this vacation. It was beautiful. It definitely did not disappoint. The scenery, the vibe, even in the times that we were in, it was still very, very enjoyable. The hotel was beautiful. Pools, beautiful. The beach was beautiful, nice and warm water. Well, my wife would tell me, at least, because I can't feel it. But other than that, it was for sure very beautiful to be out there and be able to spend some quality time with my wife and catch up and rest and not be chasing around babies, not changing diapers, not filling up bottles, not waking up in the middle of the night, not doing the whole parenting routine. Because it was something definitely that everyone tries to do when they go on vacation, right? To go get out of that routine, to no longer do what you always have to do. But in my life, I don't get to fully break out of my routine. This trip to Mexico really did prove that, and not just prove, but made me realize how disabled I really am. Ever since I got the okay to go work out, to get back into working out because my body needed it, I haven't stopped, because my neurologists, my PTs told me, hey, transverse myelitis really affected you in your muscles mainly. And it's definitely, if you don't use it, you lose it kind of thing scenario with me. Transverse myelitis hits differently for a lot of people. It affects them in very different ways. What makes it transverse myelitis is necessarily the inflammation and the lack thereof of a working nervous system. But the symptoms can vary from person to person. So for me, my symptoms definitely were affected, mainly in my muscle usage, on the ability to be able to use my muscles at will or to be able to control them. So like I mentioned, my doctors told me, you don't use them, you lose them. And that's kind of all I knew. I was never bold enough to test fully what would happen if I did not exercise, but mainly put my muscles into some really big time under tension, because that's the type of training I do. I do a lot more time under tension, not so much just like body weight exercises or just, running up and down the street. Like, that's not sufficient. It always had to be like squatting or anything that required a lot of time under tension for my core and for my legs, because those were the areas that were affected the most. Got me from the T5 down. So in Cancun, unwillingly, we had to put that to the test. Now, before this whole trip happened, I was very anxious and nervous about whether or not the gyms were going to be open. I would be calling the hotel every so often to make sure that the gyms were open. I even purchased extra insurance. That way I can cancel last minute if the gyms were not open. But I called and they told me the gyms were open. They told me that they were functioning, that there was limitations, of course, the mask, 3 people at a time apparently, but I really didn't think a lot of people in Cancun will be working out anyway, so I didn't see any big deal. But we arrived to Cancun, and that wasn't the case. The gyms were not open, and I decided not to panic. I was like, okay, maybe my body weight will be sufficient to give my muscles enough time or attention that it needs, right? Because up to that point, I never really tested the theory. I just believed my doctors. And I would feel certain discomfort when I wouldn't work out. If I skipped one day, the next day was really difficult and a lot of my pains would intensify. But never was bold enough to go a second day without working out. Well, needless to say, it didn't go well. I wasn't able to stimulate my muscles enough. My body was in extreme pain, a lot of discomfort. I was devastated that I could not fully rest. And as well that my wife could not as well, because she would see me and see my pain, and I subconsciously did the safety mechanism of trying to hide my pain as best as possible so my wife can enjoy herself. Because the last thing I wanted to do was to have her vacation be ruined. Now, it wasn't ruined. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't ruined. But it took so much out of me to look at the positive side. So much out of me to be grateful that I'm out here celebrating an anniversary, that I got to travel, that there's other people with transverse myelitis that cannot travel. But I had to work really hard. And by the time like the 5th day in, my body literally starts breaking down. Our room was in the 2nd story. I would like limp my way up to the stairs. It was kind of giving me flashbacks of when I was trying to relearn how to walk again. It just wasn't enjoyable in that aspect. And I've been meaning to make this video, but on the way back, when I got back to the States and I got back home, my pains were actually even worse. Turns out that ever since December of 2020, when there was a reconnection in my nervous system that allowed me to get my hip function back, my hip flexors, and be able to use those muscles, it also increased my sensitivity to pain. And I definitely got to experience that pain for sure. That my first week back was torture. It was very, very difficult. Getting back into the gym to put my body through what it needed on a day-to-day basis, I felt like I took a whole year backwards. I literally felt like someone would feel if they took a year off from playing sports or a year off from exercising, where just that slowness and where it wasn't responding. I only not worked out for like 6 days. And it took a very long time to get my body back into the rhythm that I needed it to be. And to this very day, it's still not where it was at before I left to Mexico. So I'm still trying to work hard to get back to where I was before I went on my vacation. And then as well, last weekend, with the family, went up to Tahoe. And that experience was a lot better, even though high elevation and really cold, icy climates increase my pain and increase my nervous system to be irritated. But I was smarter. I knew the gyms weren't going to be open, so I had to lug weights with me up to Tahoe, which were worth it. But once again, defeats the purpose of going on vacation. So a very long story short, for those of you who have transverse myelitis, I don't know what level of irritation, sensitivity, pain, chronic pain you may have. You really have to go prepared. Would I go back to Cancun again? If this is a state that I'll be leaving in, and even if the gyms were open, would I go back? Probably not. Because it wasn't just that the gyms were not open, was that my body does not like staying still for very long, and it does not like sitting for very long. So staying still and waiting in an airport and traveling all day, and also in a airplane, just sitting there the whole time, that also took a beating. The time zone took a beating on my body. If normal people get jet lag, throw transverse myelitis, and then that's, no fun. Although it was very beautiful and I enjoyed to the best of my abilities, the cost to reward ratio is just not there. The reward isn't high enough to endure the pain, but it's made me value traveling locally. Our family likes to go down to SoCal pretty often. I'm in California, if you didn't know, and I live in Northern California, and we like to go down to SoCal, to San Diego and LA, and we do it pretty frequently with the family, and it's been always okay. It was never very difficult going down there and getting back into the rhythm of things. So it's definitely made it very worth the while now to stay locally. But there's a couple of you that reached out to me who have transverse myelitis and was wanting to really have my input because, some of you haven't traveled yet. There goes a lot to it. My family, for the very first time, got to really fully see this last weekend how much maintenance my body needs. And not just that, how much equipment I have to take with me. I had to take my Theragun. I had to take my leg wraps, which is this normal tech leg wraps. I had to take my my Venom back strap, which is a it's a vibrating heat pack that goes on my back, and I got one for my knee. I had to take my roller with me, my foam roller, my leg roller. I had to take, 2 sets of dumbbells, had to take all this stuff. Like, that's just for me to function. Right? So that's what I have to do with my transverse myelitis. I don't know what type of maintenance you have for you who has transverse myelitis and you're watching this video, but it's no joke. I've been dealing with this since January of 2019, and I don't think I've really paid too much attention to how demanding this disease is. It lets itself be known for sure. It for sure does. So now I've developed a new outlook on the word vacation. And don't get me wrong, okay? For me now, it's just a change of scenery. And I value that change of scenery. And there is a nice little mental freedom from a change of scenery. But my physical routine cannot change. It cannot be compromised. All right, so that's the one thing. And number 2 is allows me to live through my children and to my wife, and seeing how they're enjoying themselves, the memories I'm creating, just seeing them grow and interact with new environments, like that has become even more beautiful to me. So I always, it's in my character to find the brighter side of things, no matter how ugly transverse myelitis is and how nasty this disease is. I am very grateful and blessed that I have children and that I have my wife, that they allow me to live with joy and happiness through them, with their experiences. And I do my very best to not let transverse myelitis affect my children. I really can't stop it from affecting my wife because she's cognitive of what's going on. But I do my very best to make sure that my children's lives are not fully affected by transverse myelitis. But so that's what I want to share with you guys. Would I travel to outside the U.S. again? No, probably not. But I still will travel because I am not going to let this disease defeat me. It's taken so much already from me, from my family. I won't let it take any more, right? For as long as that I capably can, as long as God wills me and gives me the strength to continue to push forward, I will choose to fight against this disease every step of the way. And I will invest into anything that my body needs, therapy, therapeutics, massage, all these things, right? That I will definitely make another video about of really what my day-to-day life looks like and what I actually need to do every day just to function. So that's a video for another day. But thanks for tuning in. Please share the video. Please like. Please subscribe. Help me get my story out, not just to people who have transverse myelitis, but also people who don't, who aren't aware of this. And I want to bring as much awareness of this disease as I possibly can. So I would really, really appreciate it. My wife would appreciate it. My family would appreciate it if you guys could just share these videos and share our story. Because our stories are meant to bless and to edify, to build, to encourage. And every so often, they're kind of sad. But that's just life, all right? But stay tuned. There's always more to come. Thank you. God bless you. Take it easy.